Holy smokes, we are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. If you want to support this Rebel Outpost with a donation, just hit the $ where you make a comment and I'll get to you super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome everybody into the studio that sits on the corner, the very corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to become a legend with the comments and with your phone calls later in the show. We are sitting in the studios of Keith Jackson Parkway, Kurt Gowdy Avenue. There is a sense of urgency. Heather Dinich put out an article late last night. We're going to be going through it, a short article. Yormark, Phillips, Sankey, Petiti, they are all in the same foxhole. The presidents, they don't want their student athletes to become employees. They want to be able to thread the needle. They don't believe if the student athletes become employees, they don't believe they're going to be offered the same opportunities as they do now. But they need what all these Power 4 conference commissioners need desperately. They need the House NCAA settlement to be codified. They need it in federal law. They need protections. They need antitrust exemption. They need to be able to protect themselves. I'm talking about the leadership of college athletics. They need to be able to enforce the rules that are in this House NCAA settlement. The rules in which many people in the PATC family and the college football world don't agree with. But it is the rules that Alabama agreed to, that Cincinnati agreed to, that Purdue agreed to, that Michigan agreed to, that BYU and Utah both agreed to. The Power Four, every single institution agreed with this settlement, and their commissioners are trying to get it codified. Now, it's Congress. It's the Senate. I mean, if you listen to Sankey, if you listen to Petiti, if you listen to Yormark, if you listen to Phillips, it sounds like they are encouraged. It sounds like they've got positivity running through their veins, but then maybe they have to do that. Remember, they're salesmen. You got to be a salesman to be a commissioner. You got to be able to sell. Maybe they don't have any belief it's going to happen. Maybe they're just... Charlie Baker's got his pom-poms out. He's urging the Senate to codify the settlement. Because if it doesn't happen, if it all collapses, if the settlement collapses, the problems just don't go away. You don't like the Deloitte clearinghouse? Okay. You don't like the 20.5 rev share, 20.5 million rev? Okay. You don't like the fact that the student athletes are signing a contract in which there's no collective bargaining agreement? I agree with you. Okay. But if this settlement collapses, some of you are going to be singing, some of you are going to be celebrating. But the problems just don't go away. In fact, that $2.8 billion back pay, forget about that. That's going to get ripped up. It ain't going to be $2.8 billion anymore. It's going to be $15 billion. It's going to be $20 billion. It's going to be $25 billion. Say bye-bye. Say bye-bye to many of your sports that are sponsored within your athletic department of the university that you are an alumni of, a fan of, a booster of. That is going bye-bye. There is a sense of urgency. It's palpable. It's written. It's what everybody's working on. They're up in the Senate again, April 8th, April 9th, yesterday and 2 days ago. Now, I cannot, there seems to be some optimism, but I don't know if that's true. And I mean, I don't know what that's based upon. I don't know if that's based upon different commissioners having different conversations with Cory Booker, Ted Cruz. I don't know. I don't know if they're getting a playbook, a roadmap from the Senate. Like, yeah, we think this is going to happen. We think we can get this. I don't know that. I don't know if it's genuine optimism or if it's just we got no other cards to play. we're sitting with a deuce 7 offsuit. We've got to bluff our way through here. I don't know. I'm curious to hear what you all have to say. Can the House NCAA settlement get codified? So we're going to be talking about that at the back half of our monologue. But first, once again, I'm going to bring up the Notre Dame fight in Irish. Sorry, we got to do it again. I apologize profusely. No, I don't. No, I'm not. Because here at College Football Peek Around the Corner, it is my job to give you the most accurate peek around the corner that there is in the business. I understand that the great majority of people completely disagree with our take at PATC. And I think that's a beautiful thing. It makes the show a lot more interesting. I am glad that hardly anybody agrees with. There's some of you out there. But there are also some people out there that are not genuine, right? We talked in episode, I believe it was 342. If you haven't watched the episode, we're going to go over it real quick here during this live show. There was an article put out by the South Bend Tribune. And they're talking about what new athletic director Bavakwa was saying about the difficulties of Notre Dame's football scheduling going in the future. They had asked the question, what would happen if we lost Florida State and Clemson to the ACC? That was 10 months ago. That article came out 10 months ago, and I got to tell you, I remember it. I talked about it. Everybody talked about it. Everybody talked about it. It talked about the serious consequences if Notre Dame lost the scheduling agreement with the top brands of the ACC, if Florida State and Clemson were able to walk out of the conference. Bavakwa basically said it. That was 10 months ago. And now today on April 10th, Clemson and Florida State have had a smashing victory in the courts. Now there is a set number, a payout that decreases $18 million every year. And guess what? The ACC has to accept the check. And suddenly this is not an issue anymore for Notre Dame. Suddenly this is nothing to worry about. Now, 10 months ago, everybody was talking about, whoa, man, if that ever happened, Notre Dame, what are they going to do with this? How are they going to fulfill the obligations of NBC? Now that almost everybody was on the same page. Now that it actually happened, where there was a victory in the courts, we described it from the moment it happened, a smashing victory for Clemson and Florida State. Suddenly it's not a big deal? Nah, Greg, come on. Really? Their own new athletic director described it. We're going to go through the article. Maybe a lot of you don't remember it. I remembered it. Oh, I remembered it. Not only there are other statements that have been made by Bavakwa and Swarbrick in public, in private, but we're not going to focus on the private because I'm not going to be able to give you the evidence of that. In public, warning everybody, if this shall happen, if the ACC implodes, if the scheduling agreement goes puff and smoke, How does Notre Dame fulfill the highest obligations to NBC? PATC family members, I love you all. I do. I really love each and every one of you. I am so thankful and humbled you have joined us once again. You agree, disagree, beautiful. But if you disagree with what I'm saying, please let me know, because nobody has done it yet. This is the third live show on this issue. Nobody has yet put down a roadmap of how Notre Dame can fulfill its obligations to NBC, to have high enough quality football schedule, home schedule, NBC broadcast schedule for Notre Dame to get paid at the highest level. If the ACC scheduling agreement shatters, I do not see a roadmap anywhere. This is what people are, this is the chatter behind the curtain. This is the chatter behind the curtain. Somebody in the PATC family, sit me down, put it in the comments section, later on the phone call, say, Greg, Notre Dame is not going to join the Big Ten. Notre Dame is not going to leave their football independence. Greg. Then explain to me how they get paid by NBC at the level they need to keep up with an SEC, to keep up with the Big Ten. Let me know. We're going to go through a South Bend article of 10 months ago. We're going to go through it real quick. 10 months ago. And then we're going to be going through a Scott document. We put out an episode earlier, college football preseason football games. College football preseason football games in August. Could we be seeing a Oklahoma State preseason game? Where the Minnesota Golden Gophers go to Ames, Iowa, and play those Cyclones in a preseason football game? Tony Petitti, the commissioner of the Big Ten, is intrigued by the idea. So we're going to get to that. Now, first of all, let's go through the roll call here. Jeff Keyes is in the house. Rock, Chalk, Jayhawk. The Masters is rolling. Vox Quindaro. This was the only time we could do a live show. At 4 o'clock Eastern time. 4 o'clock Eastern time, the fat guy from Minnesota is jumping on with the Mark Rogers. I'm going to be on the Mark Rogers show. I was on there last year, and I'm very grateful for the invitation. I'm going to be jumping on there at 4 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Central. So this was our time slot to get a live show. We got stuff to talk about. Jeff Westfall, roll on Bucky. Nate Campbell is in the house. Stephen McNeely, Don in Kansas. P-Lit, Go Heels. Jeff Morgan, Mr. Morgantown. P-Lit, Big Gun Shop. Patrick Baylor, Bear. Ryan Willie, the Evil Badger. Richard L. Larry, the GM. Mr. Longhorn, friends. Call me Sean. Why doesn't the Big Ten pursue both Miami and Florida State? We'll get back to that later on, friends. Call me Sean, but thanks for coming on in. I appreciate it. Bo Weevil is in the house. Chris G is in the house. Call me David. D5 Terps. Tuffy Duffy 27. Let's go. Notre Dame to the Big Ten. Man, there is a lot of Irish fans that are mad at me once again for bringing up this possibility. We think it's more than a possibility. Okay, let's get to it. We've got a packed show this afternoon. Again, let's start out with Notre Dame. Look, got to talk about it again. I think people have, I get it. I'm not the brightest bulb in the refrigerator, but I get it. There's enough light in my brain. I understand this. Notre Dame has said no to the Big Ten every single decade since I've been alive, every single decade that my father was alive. I get it. Okay? However, we believe at Peek Around the Corner, the walls keep closing in. There is going to be another major disruption in the college football landscape. We believe it's coming. South Bend Tribune. Now, this was June 17th, 2024. This is not 2025. This was 10 months ago. For Notre Dame football schedule must strike a delicate balance amid realignment, the athletic director said. Calibrating Notre Dame's football future schedule as an independent has only become more challenging in the wake of conference realignment. This was 10 months ago. Think about it. 10 months ago versus 2 years from now. It's going to get even more challenging for the Irish. Even more. Not less, more. It's one of the trickiest things we have ahead of us. Athletic director Pete Bakwawa said recently on a university-produced podcast, it's getting harder and harder. Bakwawa, the new athletic director at the time, June 17th, 2024, we have an NBC deal. We have the new college football playoff deal. We have the expanded playoffs, Bakwawa said. We have all that's going on to help us. But is, as the major conferences, really the SEC and the Big Ten have grown and gotten more competitive, those conference schedules for those teams are really difficult. If you're Michigan, again, athletic director Bakwawa 10 months ago. If you're Michigan, or if you're Alabama, or a Georgia, and you fight your way through that conference schedule, if you're the head coach of one of those teams, and now you're told by your athletic director, now you have to go play Notre Dame, that's tough. Okay, 10 months ago. What would happen if the SEC went to a ninth conference game? It becomes even more difficult. What happens if the SEC and the Big Ten have a scheduling agreement together? It becomes even more difficult. What if the ACC loses their top football brands? It becomes impossible, in our belief, for Notre Dame to fulfill its obligations to the NBC broadcast partners. As part of our NBC deal, we owe it to our media partner, Bakwawa said. We need those big-time, great, wonderful rivalries that the whole country pays attention to. This was 10 months ago. This was before the victory in the courts by Clemson and Florida State. This was before the SEC seriously contemplating and about to pull the trigger on the ninth conference game. This is before the advisory group between the SEC and the Big Ten. This was before the serious talks of a scheduling agreement between the Big Ten and the SEC. This was all before that, and it was getting tough. It was getting tough for Notre Dame to fulfill its obligations to NBC. We need those big time great games. We need to play Clemson. We need to play Florida State. We need to play Miami. We need to play SEC teams once in a while. We need to play Michigan. We need to have a series with USC. We need to have a home football schedule that fulfills our obligations to NBC. Ladies and gentlemen, it was difficult 10 months ago. What do you think is going to happen 2 years from now? If the SEC expands, if the Big Ten expands, what do you think is going to happen? What's more, Bavacqua noted, the strength of our schedule is going to be more important than ever in working our way into that expanded playoff. With the CFP moving from 14 to 12 this fall and a 14-team version on the horizon, there's an art in crafting a sufficiently challenging schedule, but not one that proves to be suffocating. Notre Dame's scheduling partnership with the Atlantic Coast Conference remains in effect. It does. 10 months ago, it was in effect. Today, it is in effect. But what happens if the ACC loses football cachet should Florida State and Clemson depart? What happens? How does Notre Dame have a good enough home football schedule with the other options that are out there? Home football schedule that includes away trips into the markets in which there are Notre Dame fans, like the West Coast, like Chicago, like the East Coast. How does Notre Dame fulfill that? Again, this was before the victory in the courts. A day doesn't pass where we're not talking about our schedule, who we should add, or what we should move around, Bavacqua said. Now, the good news for us, preparation-wise, we're pretty well scheduled to 2030. Really. Now, the good news for us, Bavacqua, the good news for us, because this is a challenge. This is a challenge. We got to meet our obligations to NBC. This is a challenge. But through all this challenge here, the good news for us is we're pretty well scheduled through 2030. Where you're not going to be if Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina depart in and around 2027 or 2028. If the ACC implodes in 27 or 28, again, I ask you, I'm pleading with somebody to give me a viable answer. How does Notre Dame fulfill its independent football schedule as a standalone entity with their broadcast partner, NBC? I haven't gotten an answer yet. I'm all for people disagreeing, but I haven't gotten an answer yet. The good news, this was 10 months ago. The good news for us is we're pretty well scheduled to 2030. Well, maybe not so much. We shall see, correct? We're going to find out in the next 24 months if you're well scheduled to 2030. I would say the next 18 months. It is more important for us than ever, Bavacqua, 10 months ago, from a media standpoint, not only to fulfill our obligations to NBC now, but also to position ourselves as a valuable partner in the next round of media negotiations, which are a few years off. But if you blink an eye, the 6 years go by. More important than ever before to give NBC what they need so NBC can give Notre Dame what they need in media payouts for Notre Dame to keep up with the Big Ten and the SEC coffers. As a standalone entity, as a football independence. Jack Swarbrick, before he retired, made it very clear what Notre Dame required, what they needed to maintain their football independence. They would need to maintain football playoff access. They got it. They would need to be able to have all their sponsored sports in a home where they would get the exposure and they would get a competitive ability to challenge for national championships in all their sponsored sports. They've got that right now. And they need the ability to have a broadcast partner that was valuable enough, the deal valuable enough for them to where they could compete at the highest level when it comes to the revenue sports, basketball, football. Right now, they got that. They got these things. Because they got these things, they're going to stay in football independence. Now I ask the question again. What happens if Florida State and Clemson depart? What happens if North Carolina departs along with Virginia? What happens if Notre Dame knows, because those schools departed, that Miami, there's a very good shot that Miami is going to also depart? What happens to Notre Dame's ability to maintain a home and a conference in the ACC, to be competitive, to get the exposure and the revenue, to compete at the highest level among their other sponsored sports? I think that gets shattered. What happens to Notre Dame's ability to get from their broadcast partners the revenue needed to compete at the highest level in football and basketball with NBC? With what home schedule? What schedule is Notre Dame going to put out? This is why, part of the reasons why we included Notre Dame in our supposedly radical conclusion of what is going to happen in the next conference realignment. Because we are under the belief, we have good reasons to believe we could end up being wrong. If we're wrong, we'll take the big L. But we have strong reasons to believe in the future, not imminent, because there's so many things that are going on in governance, the settlement. There's so many things going on. I think the commissioners, I don't think they're going to screw around with the ACC and Phillips. They need Phillips. They need everybody on board for quite a while here. But there's going to come a time where we believe that the SEC transforms themselves again in a drastic way. And it's going to end up poaching the ACC's top brands. And the Big Ten then is going to look at Notre Dame and say, now what? And I don't think Notre Dame is going to have any other choice. I don't see a choice. As much of I've been talking about this issue, as many conversations I have had off camera, as many conversations I've had with all of you, I do not see the ability for Notre Dame to maintain themselves above the revenue stratification line, which concerned USC. That's why they call it the Big Ten. I do not see Notre Dame being able to do it without leaning into the scheduling agreement with the ACC. Remember, Notre Dame needed that scheduling agreement with the ACC. They needed it. And it helped the ACC out tremendously. But Notre Dame needed it. They got it. But they might lose it. They will lose it at some point. Again, put down, give me a pathway. Give me a pathway of how Notre Dame can keep up without the ACC scheduling agreement. I'll read it. I'll ponder it. Thank you. I appreciate it. We've got super chats. We got more to go through here in a monologue. Thank you guys so very much. We're not going to do, we're going to get to your phone calls as soon as possible. The Evil Badger, Ryan Willie, super chat. Notre Dame should have joined the Big Ten decades ago. Thank you for the super chat. Notre Dame loves their football independence. It's part of who they are. It's part of their culture. And it brings great value to Notre Dame. But let's be honest here. The economics of consolidation has affected everybody. Positive, negative. The next disruption of conference realignment, which a lot of people have said out in public, is going to be huge. It's going to be major. It's going to affect Notre Dame, in our strongly held belief here at Peek Around the Corner. Thank you, Ryan Willie. I do appreciate it so very much. Ricky Tungate, 5 gifted memberships. Holy smokes. Jonathan Weaver, David Allison, Frank H. L. V. Seminole, Storm Chaser, 80. You've all been gifted a membership by the Mr. Hoosier, Ricky Tungate. When you have an opportunity, please say thank you to Ricky when you get a chance. Mr. Tungate, thank you once again for all your generosity throughout the months and years. Thank you for helping us keep the lights on. I so much appreciate it. All of you are officially knighted Cloak and Dagger. Speaking of Cloak and Dagger, Mr. Hoosier, Ricky Tungate. Speaking of Cloak and Dagger, there's a lot of Cloak and Dagger stuff going on right now. So I would keep your head on a swivel for public reports. Keep your head on a swivel. This channel. Remember, we gave you the hot bubble of action on April 28th, a couple years ago, when we said that we talked about how Colorado was at the center of the stage, and then May 8th, we said that the Pac-12 got a shot in the solar plexus. Well, May 7th was the meeting between Colorado and Yormark in Chicago. It lasted 90 minutes. We were able, fortunately, to give you a peek around the corner to tell you that there was a hot bubble of action going on. I think we're going to be able to do that again. I'm real confident we're going to be able to do that again for you all. We happen to believe that nothing is imminent for reasons of, we're just going to call it governance reasons. I do not think Petiti and Sankey and the media partners, and I don't think anyone's interested in instability right now. Like, there's going to be a time for this, but it isn't. We don't believe it's now. But going on months from now, going on into the fall, into next year, I feel really good about having the ability to give you guys some more accurate hot bubble of action. We're going to explain to you as best we can of what's going on. And right after something happens, a meeting or whatever, we'll try to explain to you. We'll give you a hint. We'll give you winks. And sometimes we're going to be able to give you all the detail. So buckle up, brace for impact. Stay with us here at Peek Around the Corner. I appreciate it. What else we got here? I think that's it. I believe that is it. We're ready to go Oh, Daniel Gygax, Mr. Mountaineer, I do appreciate it, sir, for the super chat. Does anyone know if Notre Dame has to pay the full ACC buyout, or is it pro-rated? I think they do, but I'm not sure. I've asked that question. So the question is, this is interesting. This is very interesting. It's a great question. I think they do, and I'm gonna explain why. Before I was under the belief, and everybody else was under the belief that I talked to, that if Notre Dame, this was before the settlement, this was before Florida State and Clemson even went into the courts, it was believed that Notre Dame, for them to get out of the ACC, it would cost them less than the other ACC schools. Because under the grant of rights agreement, they're under the grant of rights agreement in regards to the ACC network. They're not under the grant of rights agreement in regards to the Tier 1 rights, the broadcasting rights of ESPN, of ABC. They're not getting money from Tier 1 content. They're getting Tier 1 content from NBC. So it was always going to be less expensive for Notre Dame to get out of the ACC. But lawyers have expressed that Clemson and Notre Dame's argument was that even Notre Dame had to pay the same price as them, that it was arbitrary, that it didn't really have, it was, the number was set in stone for everybody, including Notre Dame. So that confused a whole bunch of people. So I've asked that question, and for now, we're going to go with, we believe that Notre Dame's, like, they would have to pay the 165, 147 next year, 129 the following year. We could be wrong on that. We're not sure, but it is a great question. It is an absolute great question. I'm not 100% committed to what we believe. We've asked the question, that's the answer we've gotten. It's hard to believe that Notre Dame would pay the same amount. But that is what Clemson and Florida State argued as part of their proceedings. Thank you, Daniel Gygax. Not a real great answer. I'm not 100% sure. Greg, what's your pick for the Frozen Four? Let's go with Penn State. Why not? I mean, I suppose I could go with Boston College, but I think I'm going to go with Penn State. Nittany Lions take it. How about them apples? How about them apples? Notre Dame should join the Big East. Again, and that seems to be the number one answer. When the ACC gets poached and loses their top brands, the number one answer I get is Notre Dame would join a conference of private institutions. Sounds like a lovely idea, except they would have to rip up their NBC contract. It doesn't fulfill NBC, it doesn't fulfill the obligations to NBC. Notre Dame would have to take a massive pay cut. So it sounds like a wonderful idea, Notre Dame and these private institutions of the ACC and throwing some Ivy League schools, but at the end of the day, Notre Dame ain't going to get paid what they need to get paid. So I just don't. I happen to believe that's not a viable option. Daniel Gygax, I've heard both as well also, so I'm not so sure. Edward, the Auburn Tiger, is in the house. Notre Dame could join the Pac-7 again. They could. But, I mean, it would satisfy a few. I mean, they would be able to go out to California and you know, it would satisfy a market of Notre Dame fans out there, but they're not going to get the money needed. Notre Dame ain't interested in going backwards on revenue. Remember, Jack Swarbrick sponsored the Rudy Project, the 72-team Super League. And if you look at that concept, it had Notre Dame at the very highest Tier 1 permanent 8 schools that would get the highest media payout possible under the Rudy Project. And Notre Dame is a top 8, top 10 valuable brand. No question about it. None of this is a shot at Notre Dame. But see, even in that Project Rudy idea, where you save a whole bunch, supposedly, $9 billion of private capital comes in, you're saving all these athletic departments, you're doing all this, but yet Notre Dame is at the very top of the meet. Notre Dame is not interested in taking a huge pay cut. Joining the Pac-7, that would happen. Joining the Big East, that would happen. Joining a private ACC 2.0 private, that ain't going to give them, that's not even close to the money they need. The SEC is not going to do a scheduling deal with Notre Dame. The Big Ten ain't going to do a scheduling deal with Notre Dame. They're already going to be playing 9 conference games. They're already going to be doing something together with each other. Crossover, aggressive scheduling agreement. They're also going to be playing each other more in bowl games. Why would they include Notre Dame in any of that? If the SEC is going to 20 schools, or even if they go to 18, why would they? The only viable path, and I don't think Notre Dame would be interested in it. The only viable path I see for Notre Dame not to drop way back in revenue in their scheduling, in their NBC contract, is they have a scheduling agreement with the Big 12. There's some juice there in the Big 12. There would probably be some cloak and dagger interest from ESPN in saying, hey, Notre Dame, scheduling agreement with the Big 12. We keep you out of the paws of Fox and the Big 10. But again, it's not a shot at the Big 12 institutions, but the market, the fan bases, the locations of the Big 12 does not engineer themselves, it isn't Notre Dame markets of where their alumni are, where their fans are. Notre Dame wanted to be an independent program for lots of reasons. One of the reasons is because their fan base is on the West Coast, on the East Coast, in the Midwest, Chicago, Indiana. The Catholics out in Los Angeles. So the Big 12 markets don't really play to that. So I really see a very difficult for Notre Dame to keep up, to fulfill their obligations to NBC. If their scheduling agreement with the ACC shatters because of SEC Big Ten expansion. Big 12 Protestant markets. Notre Dame has become a banking institution. Joke, paternal. Okay, we're on to the next story here. We're going to quickly go through it. I covered it in an episode earlier today. Scott Dochterman, The Athletic. As college football spring scrimmages change, would preseason games be better? As long as it didn't count, I'd be all for it, said Iowa's coach Kirk Ferentz, the longest serving head coach in Division I football. It's kind of like the NFL preseason games. They don't count against your win-loss record, but it gives you a chance to get guys in game experience in different situations. To get guys in game experience in different situations. The concept of preseason games intrigued Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti, PATC money shot number 1 of the article. Preseason games have been discussed. August preseason games have been in discussion. They have intrigued the Big Ten Commissioner, who wanted to know more about Ferent's position when asked. Petitti was non-committal, but talked through several scenarios, such as if teams would compete at full speed or 4 quarters or limited reps for their starters. I've heard it come up a little bit on basketball. Hey, why can't we just play a few games to get started? Petitti said. I'd be curious to see the approach on the pro side about who plays. They use it as evaluation, right? I'd be interested to see what that would mean for us. There is an NCAA precedent for either spring or fall scrimmages. Division II rules allow for spring scrimmages between teams. Nebraska Kearney, Sioux Falls will conduct this week a spring scrimmage. In Division III, programs are allowed up to 2 preseason scrimmages, exhibitions, or joint practices each fall. So there is precedent in Division II and Division III. The possibilities are endless for what programs might consider if preseason games were allowed. From 2 power conference teams colliding to an FBS-FCS matchup with few frills, the SEC and the Big Ten are exploring opportunities to compete against one another more often in football, and perhaps preseason games could figure into that dynamic. Maybe they could even be used as a way to restore regional rivalries, such as Oklahoma versus Oklahoma State. A preseason game, Oklahoma versus Oklahoma State, that would sell a few tickets. USC Stanford, Maryland, Virginia. What about the Iowa State Cyclones against my beloved Minnesota Golden Gophers? Or what about the Cincinnati Bearcats versus the Kentucky Wildcats? Preseason football could tap additional revenue streams through ticket sales, sponsorships, and media rights. Many schools require 7 home football games per year to generate enough revenue to pay for other sports on campus. With gate concessions, parking, and other sales, many power conference programs earn more than $5 million per home game. So there's more to the article. That's what we're going to go through today on the live show. Part of the article that I did not hit but should be hit is, look, if you're going to do a preseason game, if you're going to bring all this revenue in, You got to pay the players. You got to pay the players, right? There's a risk benefit to all this. The benefit is you're going to be scrimmaging a game against an opponent that is not your own players that you've been practicing against for weeks. You're going to have guys, real young guys, going into the game and having college football in-game experience in different situations. That's the benefit. There is a risk. There's injury risks, right? Wear and tear. So these players are going to have to get paid. There's going to be a cost to this. But it is an intriguing idea. Tony Petitti believes it's an intriguing idea. What do you think about preseason football games in August? Going up against a program which is real close to your program, location-wise, but you don't play them very often, or you don't play them at all. They're a team not in your conference. Would you be interested in buying a ticket, going down there and watching your team scrimmage? Let me know in the comments section, in the chat room. Let me know with your phone calls later in the show. Let me know if you are intrigued to this idea. What program would you like your team to go up against in a college football preseason game? Let me know. Let me know. Bring back some old Big 8 rivalries. Paul Reinhardt can't wait for Ohio State to scrimmage. I'd be interested, but G5 schools, if you have a preseason games, Go Black 45, make it against FCS teams only. They don't give out trophies for undefeated preseason records. Jared Jones, I'm intrigued. Bring on Kentucky. Bring on Kentucky. Kevin Hampton, maybe they could go back to playing JV schedule. Kirk Ferentz is on something. Stephen Vitt. College basketball Division I schools will play a Division II school as a preseason game. Daniel Gygax. Okay. Ferris State at Michigan. There's a sense of urgency. Again, the title screen of this live show, sense of urgency among college football leaders. Heather Dinich, late last night, put out an article. Power 4 stakeholders lobby for NIL legislation on Capitol Hill. Washington, a who's who of leaders from the Big Ten, the SEC, the Big 12, and the ACC gathered on Capitol Hill yesterday, Wednesday, to meet with state representatives and lobby for federal NIL guidelines. A strong showing of unity from the NCAA's largest and wealthiest conferences just days after a federal court hearing inched college athletics closer to a landmark settlement. University presidents and chancellors, athletic directors, and a few coaches and players concluded the day with a cocktail reception at the Andrew Mellon Auditorium, where SEC Commissioner Sankey, ACC Commissioner Phillips, Big 12 Commissioner Yormark, Big 10 Commissioner Petitti participated in a brief panel recapping the day. We're kind of in a seminal moment, Phillips said. We're trying to find something that has sustainability to it. It's a modernization of college sports, I think, for all of us. We are passionate about access and affordability to higher education. At the heart of this thing is opportunities for young men and women. Times have changed. And whether we like all the things that have occurred or we don't, we find ourselves in a position where we are major stewards of the future of college sports. While the commissioners have made multiple trips to the nation's capital to push for federal NIL legislation, it's not often, if at all, that such a large contingency from their respective leagues has joined them, and all four at the same time. Auburn's men's basketball coach Bruce Pearl, fresh off a Final Four appearance, attended the event, along with Texas football coach Steve Sarkisian. We have been here repeatedly, Sankey said, of the commissioners. The reality is the timing of the House settlement, the new Congress, and when we planned really months ago to be here, there was a nexus of issues. We know there's conversations taking place. We've educated, I think, effectively members of the House and Senate, and we need to keep pushing, and to do that with our universities is much healthier than simply doing that as commissioners, and doing so in a coordinated way across the four conferences. And finally, in the article, on Monday, there was a federal court hearing in Oakland, California, regarding the highly publicized House settlement in which the NCAA has agreed to pay roughly $2.8 billion in damages to past and current athletes. Wednesday's meeting also came on the heels of March Madness, in a week from the opening of the spring transfer portal window. Everyone knows there is a sense of urgency, Yormark said. Time is not on our side. So we have to move quickly and swiftly. The settlement is one thing, but it needs to be codified on the Hill. Yormark says everybody knows there is a sense of urgency. The settlement, okay, it looks like it's going to get approved in a few weeks from now. That's one thing. But it needs to. The settlement needs to be codified on the Hill, or the whole thing is going to collapse. And I said this at the beginning of the live show. A lot of you are hoping for the collapse, okay? But you're not going to be hoping for what happens after the collapse. You know, there's not many subjects in college athletics in which there is such a consensus, in which there is such an agreement. But every one of these commissioners, all these presidents, they believe that the only way out of this is a federal carve-out, antitrust exemption, something that points them in the direction in which they've made this settlement agreement. The players are getting more compensation, but they need this codified. The leadership of college athletics needs this codified so they can enforce the rules that were created in this settlement, that were agreed to, that were negotiated with. Now, none of this was negotiated with labor. That's the problem. That's why they need the antitrust exemption. I'm all for a collective bargaining agreement. But man, I do not see it happening anytime soon. I'm not sure what the chances are of the Hill codifying what has happened in in the court hearing. There seems to be some optimism out there. I don't have it, but I'm more optimistic about a carve-out than a CBA, unfortunately. But that's how I see it. Let me know how you see it. We're going to go to your phone calls in just a little bit here, a few minutes from now. Curtis, Michigan. These preseason games are game scrimmages that should have happened years ago. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you so much, Curtis. I appreciate it. I'm going to tell you, Curtis, you know how crazy I am here at Peek Around the Corner. If Michigan is playing Central Michigan Chippewas in a scrimmage, I'll be doing the watch party on it. If it's on a network, if it's on a platform, I'll be doing the watch party on it. We'll be analyzing every screen pass that Michigan does Underwood to the tight end. We're going to be analyzing everything of it. I'm with you, Curtis. I hope it happens as a fan, but the players are going to have to get paid. The players are going to have to get paid. Thank you, Curtis, for the super chat. Another Michigan Wolverine. Holy smokes, they're all over the place. I got the sense, following the next realignment, that the SEC would be riding steeds like the sun sets on our booty, while the Big Ten would be riding ponies, table scraps, or that dog won't hunt. Thank you for the super chat, Helmer Henderson. I'm not really sure what all that means. To be honest, I think what you're saying is the SEC, I think what you're saying is the scenario that PATC has laid out, that the SEC would be eating first and better than the Big Ten. I think that is what you're saying. But I would, all that might be true, but I would, that might be true, but the SEC can't eat all. Not everything that is valuable on the buffet table. And the Big Ten has always been focused on Notre Dame or North Carolina. The SEC is focused on North Carolina. We happen to believe, and if we end up being wrong, I'll take the L, but we happen to believe that the SEC is willing to go up to the buffet table and put a lot of food on their plate, but for ESPN to pay for that plate, the Seminole and the Tiger are going to have to be on that plate. And the presidents are not going to go up to the buffet table unless Virginia and North Carolina are on that plate. So the SEC is bringing back the fans, the alumni, the boosters, and the networks, and everybody. They're going to be bringing back to the table. They're going to be eating a large plate of a diversified of food from Virginia to North Carolina, the Seminole Wind to Clemson, the Claw, the Tigers, the Paws. This is what we believe. Now, table scraps. If Notre Dame is part of what the Big Ten now would be able to do, and we think yes, I would not consider that table scraps. Neither would the media partners. Notre Dame is in that current media contract. The media partners have agreed that they would pay everybody more if Notre Dame would be part of the Big Ten. So I think under the scenario that we believe is the most likely, I think both will eat well. The Big 12 might be the next one at the buffet table. We'll get into that later. But I understand, Helmer Henderson. I get it. My prof is here. Truck stop rivalries. Sunglasses date. I forgot about that. Maybe I should not have used Michigan. Probably won't. Yeah, that. Let's do. The only thing worse I could have said is Michigan State versus Central Michigan in a scrimmage game. Michigan versus Ball State. Let's do that one. Studzilla, you have a lot of cocky SEC fans who think they're going to get every big team left. And the Big Ten is going to be taking subpar teams. Hold on, everybody. Hold on. One moment. Yep. No, I'm live right now, though. I'm live. I'm looking in the camera and I'm on the phone talking with you.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
So, can you pick me up at 2? I
Get,
sent you the text
no.
message. I am at 4:15.
Okay. Where at 2 o'clock?
Burger King and my Pokoro.
Got it. No problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye. I apologize for that, the little general. I had to pick up that call. Hello, Matt Gopher, and you would have thought they would have all this stuff figured out by now with this settlement. Well, they tried to get this codified earlier, but we got a new Congress. They think this is the opportunity to get Congress to move on anything. George says you shouldn't want a CBA. Strikes would destroy college athletics and the ability of athletic departments to budget with any certainty. Income streams would be continually marginalized. Thank you, George, for your perception. Perception. A lot of people agree with you. But I do think CBA does bring about cost certainty to the length of the CBA agreement. But there are good, valid reasons why these universities don't want their student athletes to become employees. I have heard that would be a Pandora's box that would lead to other students becoming employees. That they would have the ability, like people who do research projects. I mean, it could be an endless stream of just. So the university presidents, they do not want a slippery slope. They do not want their student athletes in their athletic departments to become employees of the university. They are all in agreement on that. So I get it. There's lots of good reasons. Back and forth. Roger Dodger, the Big Ten should just take Notre Dame and a West Coast team and nothing else. Let the SEC take the charity cases. Value of the Big Ten, SEC, Big Ten after realignment. Great question. If it goes out the way we think it will, obviously the value jumps for both. Extremely, a lot. But I do not know. That is my bad answer to your great question. T5 Terps, I would like the trips to Miami. Both will be ridiculous. I think that is the major point. Okay, let's go to your phone calls here. We got to wrap this up in 15 minutes. Let's get to some phone calls. If anybody wants to call in, 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. Call in. The floor will be yours. You can talk about anything in college football. that your heart desires. We hit the sense of urgency. It's got to be codified. It's got to be codified. The settlement has to be codified.
From Rick.
Rick, go ahead, sir. The floor is yours. Thanks for calling. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for taking the call. Yesterday, I mentioned the possibility, I ran it by you, of Miami making the first break and being the 19th team to join the Big Ten. And then you got a caller from Utah who disagreed, and that's a good thing to disagree. But what I didn't understand in the logic was, if Miami were to leave today and go to the Big Ten and get the same deal as Washington and Oregon is currently getting, that's a half a share, right?
Yep.
And that half share runs up until the new contract, at which time Oregon and Washington will become full share.
Mm-hmm.
So if Miami were to leave tonight and be offered that same deal as Washington and Oregon, what better deal is available for Miami than that?
Well, there might not be a better deal for Miami, but there might be a better deal for the Big Ten.
I understand. But we already decided that the presidents want Miami.
Yep.
NBC wants Miami.
I get what you're saying. I think let's say you're asking the question, what if the Big Ten presidents absolutely know 100%, even though it's not official yet, they absolutely know, the commissioner, the Big Ten presidents, everybody absolutely knows that North Carolina is off the table for the Big Ten. Can Miami then be the 19th school? Could they jump ahead? I suppose they could, but then again, I suppose they could, but then I don't know what the benefit of it is, because if North Carolina comes on board, they're going to have to rip up that half-share contract with Miami anyways, right? Because they're going to get a full share. Rick, again, I could be 100% wrong, but I think once the SEC pulls the trigger, and I don't think it's imminent, but once they pull the trigger, I think everything that happens after that is going to happen quite rapidly. I think
but you would agree.
Move. I think all the planes are going to land. I think the Big Ten will be ready to go and make their move, and Notre Dame's going to have to make their decision and all that stuff.
But getting back to my original question, what better deal will Miami get than that?
They won't. They could get a full share deal.
From whom?
From the Big Ten.
No, they don't have to. Not if the Big Ten extends an invite to Miami tonight at a half share. Take it or leave it.
Yeah,
tonight.
but the Notre Dame would trigger the full share anyways.
Yeah, but that's after. That would be after they became the 19th.
I think you're correct, but I don't think they're going to do business that way.
And that was the whole point of the call, that they need to think outside the box, the Big Ten, and not react, instead of reacting to the SEC's plight at trying to get North Carolina moving and awaiting the SEC's decision on whether or not to take 2 or 4. Make the aggressive move, Big Ten. Take Miami at a half a share, because I still think Miami would jump at it tonight. That would give you 19, and it would absolutely crack the ACC. That would immediately get things going. And then I complimented that by saying, then you call up Florida State and say, hi, Florida State, we're the Big Ten, and we have 19 teams. And Florida State would say, oh, well, can you hang on a second so I can call my Uncle Sankey and talk to him real quick? I mean, it would get the whole thing going.
You bring up some interesting points. People are agreeing with you in the chat.
Well, I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
But what I really want is the Big Ten to agree with me.
Okay.
And Patini to get off his behind and do it.
I mean, I have an answer, but you're not going to like it. King Spleen is not going to like it. Morris Simmons is not going to like it. Jose is not going to like it. Nobody's going to like it. But I'll give the answer anyways. This is why I'm the most unpopular YouTube channel in the country. The reason is because one of the rules of realignment is you start with the biggest domino pieces. The Big Ten, while they're game planning all this out, they're war gaming this thing, so is all the institutions. The Big Ten ain't going to give up on North Carolina. Maybe they get a miracle shot. Maybe North Carolina, for whatever reason, I don't know what it would be at this point, but for whatever reason, the Big Ten gets the best, gets exactly what they wanted. All their dreams come through. The unicorn and the bunny rabbits and the flowers and the rainbows, they all appear. Patini strikes gold, and they get North Carolina and Notre Dame. Some incredible moonshot. That is why you don't offer Miami tonight. I mean, the biggest dominoes have to fall first, and then that would be my answer. It's an answer that no one's going to like, but that's the answer.
But under my scenario,
yeah,
that could still happen, and you'd have 21 teams.
Yeah, but there may be other things that go with those two teams.
There may be all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it couldn't happen. And it doesn't mean that you don't get the ball rolling down the lane. I mean, maybe you throw a gutter ball, maybe you throw a strike. But if you know that Miami is what you want and what NBC wants, and that you can get them at half price, and that you can get them tonight, and that you can crack open the ACC starting tonight, that you're leading the charge, not the SEC leading the charge. This is business. This is multi-billion-dollar business. I just don't like the way Patini plays the game. Hey, thanks for taking my call, Greg.
You got it. Appreciate it. Great call by Rick. Love his calls. Ryan Willie, did you get my message about the Power 4 commissioners on Fox News about NIL? No, I did not. Was there a previous super chat? I don't see it. There's so many comments, I cannot get to them. Did you send it to me on X? I haven't seen it yet. I know they were going to be on Fox News, but I haven't gotten any reporting of it. Maybe later on today I'll see it. Thank you, Ryan Willie, for the super chat. I apologize if you sent me a message. Been doing the live show. I do know that there's going to be some Fox News statement, the commissioners and all that. I'll get to it when I get a chance. Thank you, Ryan Willie, for the super chat. I very much appreciate it. Very much. I agree with OptiCat here. Nothing is going to happen until the House settlement is codified and the college football playoff format is solidified. And if the ACC is rated now, the negotiations for all have to be restarted. They wouldn't have to be restarted on the... I agree with that statement. I agree with the spirit of that statement. It's just nothing is imminent at this point because of those reasons and others. I mean, again, there's certain dominoes that have to fall first, and these big ones have to fall. I mean, they're not going to strip the 8. What the Power 4 conferences don't need right now, the SEC don't need it, the Big Ten don't need it, is more instability. They got to get through all this. We don't believe anything is imminent right now. We don't believe anyone's going to be offering anybody right now. There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of gaming this out. There's a lot of money being spent on a lot of lawyers. There's a lot of money being spent on a lot of consultants. There's a lot of money being spent with former media officials that are doing valuations. There's a lot of money, there's a lot of time, there's a lot of sweat, there's a lot of tears being spent on all of this right now. No one's waiting. They're all working it. They've all got their lawyers. They've all got their consultants. They've all got their special people located in special places. They're already taking trips to locations. That's already happening. But I don't think anything official is going to happen. We had people out there on X message board saying schools have been officially offered and officially invited years ago when it wasn't even possible. It still hasn't happened. There hasn't been any official anything. But there's a whole lot of wargaming going on right now. Cloak and dagger, it's all happening. Okay, I want to thank you all for joining us. 5 p.m., thank you, Ryan Willie. 5 p.m. Central Time is going to be the commissioners on Fox News. Thank you, Ryan Willie. I do appreciate it. Look, I'm going to be on the air with Mark Rogers at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, 3 o'clock Central Time. So catch us on the Mark Rogers, the voice of college football. It's going to be great to be on with him again on his channel. Come on into the chat. Give me a hard time if you got the opportunity. We'll be talking more about all of this on the Mark Rogers Show. I want to thank the people who have donated to this channel to help us keep the lights on. We do a lot of work, so I do appreciate you all helping us out. Ryan Willie, Ricky Tungate, Daniel Gygax, Curtis, Helmer Hennison, Ryan Willie, thank you guys so very much. We only got to one phone call, but it was a great phone call by Rick. Again, keep your head on a swivel. We might have to come on again later tonight. Breaking news. We do not know what's going to happen. Keep your head on a swivel. If you haven't done it yet, shame on you. If you haven't done it yet, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, hit the subscribe button, smash the like button if you've liked our content today, and share the video with your family and friends. Until next time. From all of us at College Football's Peek Around the Corner to all of you, please, 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 you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.